one thing I want to say is why we made this video today and why we're talking about this today is because there's a lot of people right now actually watching us that have a fear of getting into wholesaling. They have a fear of talking to sellers. They have a fear of actually taking that action. And everybody knows that action is going to lead to your results, you making money, changing your financial life, and changing everything for wholesaling real estate. So how can I not want to talk about this? And how can I not want to overcome people's fears today? And so many beginners watching. And I also want to make this video. If anybody goes out here and they tell me they're scared to start wholesaling in the DMs, I just send them this video so they can kind of break that mold of that fear they have. And I want just to say this before we get started. It is completely normal to have a fear of getting started into something as crazy, adventurous, and some might say risky as wholesaling real estate, right? It is completely normal. I don't think it's something that is an unnecessary fear. It's actually a very natural one.
Yeah, I've never met anybody that did wholesaling that did not have some sort of initial fear, anxiety, scared to death to do it, including myself, including you when you did it. And I'm here to tell you, I'm 20 years plus, and 90% of the stuff I was scared of never really came true. So for the most part, most of your fear is just stuff you've made up in your head, and it's never going to come to reality. And if you understand that by just taking action alone, you will overcome it. If you succumb to your fear, you'll never have a chance to be a wholesaler. And honestly, fear is going to be somewhat synonymous when you start to become uncomfortable. So when you decide to take this journey to be a wholesaler, or you're considering it, I commend you, understanding you're going to do what 95, probably 98% of the world is scared to death to do. So it's perfectly normal to acknowledge, to feel fear, and understanding you're not alone. I think it's got about a 99% of people have the same feelings you do. So I had it when I started out. He had it. We all had it. So the idea is, how do we navigate through it, and how do we actually use it to our advantage?
And really, it's a natural fear, and it's something that I can help a lot of people just get over, right? So let's talk about this. Let's really like break down these fears and how to overcome them and everything you really need to know about how to actually conquer them, right? And let's sort of break this down. Now, I'm very excited to get started. So I think the first thing you have to ask yourself, if you're starting out, you might have a fear of wholesaling, right? This is a very important thought you have to have for yourself, but your fear of failure has to be greater than your fear of wholesaling real estate. One thing I can tell you is you need something that's going to drive you, right? So something that's going to push you past the brink of where most people usually quit, right? And you look at the greatest human beings of all time that have accomplished amazing things. And we're not telling you to be the next like crazy big general or king or president or anything like. We're not talking about that, right? We're not telling you to go out here and be this crazy icon that changes the world, right? We're talking about changing your financial freedom, right? We're talking about changing your life and everything around it. So you're going to have something that drives you. If you have nothing that drives you, somebody else in your market, your competition, is going to have something that's driving them. So for example, when I went against my competition in wholesaling real estate, they all had the why of, hey, I'm married, I have kids, and I got to take care of them and put food on the plate. And if I don't get a deal, they don't get fed, right? That drove them pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my drive on paper didn't seem like it was as like big as that one, but it's not about the why, but it's the way that you perceive the why. So for me, my drive was, I do not want to work for $8 an hour as a bag boy, scrubbing toilets, bagging groceries for the rest of my life. Now, on paper, that is not as motivating as maybe putting food on the table for your kids and family, right? But for me, it was life or death. It was, my life could be extremely over unless I go out here and become successful in wholesaling. That was everything to me. That was my goal. I was so sick of potentially working as a bag boy the rest of my life in a grocery store and making $50K, $60K a year that I was willing to do anything necessary and grind it out and just never quit, never surrender to achieve that goal. And the problem is, a lot of my competition, they're comfortable making 80, 90, 100K a year in wholesaling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so their drive was maybe just getting one deal a month, right? And that was what they had a big why, right? Taking care of the kids and stuff. But after a deal or two in a month, they were like not hungry for it, right? And the chip on my shoulder of never working for that job, it was so great for myself that I pushed limits on my own mind. And I said, I'm just going to eat, breathe, sleep wholesaling until I don't have to work a job anymore. And they got me 2 deals and eventually over 100K and then millions of dollars, right? It was not that the why was a better why than somebody else's, but the why to me meant so much more to myself to push myself than the why for somebody else to push themselves. I don't know if I explained that the right way, but me working a bag boy job pushed my mind to cold call 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and taking care of the kids might not push somebody to do that, right? It might for some people, but it might not for others, right? Because once you start making the 100K, you kind of stop. That's still a driver for me, right? And it's not that, I don't have to work another day in my life or, we have plenty of passive income and stuff coming in, but like, I can tell you, it still pushes me hard. And for a lot of people, that fear of failure, the fear of being where you're at right now or staying at where you're at has to be greater than the fear of talking to a seller, right?
Yeah, it's you go back 20 plus years ago when I did this. You were a lot younger when you made the decision. You had some better tools, but it took me 11 years to make that decision. And my driving point for wholesaling was if you ever felt backed in a corner in a job you have, it's like the worst feeling. And I go, you know what? It can't get any worse than what this is. I hated my boss. I hated what I did. And I know a lot of you can relate to this on this live. I just said, you know what? It can't be any worse.
It can't.
And I just said, what do I got to lose? Because I already know where I'm at and I hate it. So why don't I go look for prosperity? I found wholesaling. The rest is history. I was beyond scared to death. Like, honestly, if I had this live stream before I did it, it would have helped me because I really struggled my first 2 or 3 years just getting through. You know what? My biggest fear in wholesaling was I would run out of deals. And here I am like 21 years later. It's like, there's as many as I want to go out and find. So, you got to find your purpose. If you feel like you're backed up in a wall and go, I can't take one more day of this, I can always go back and do a job like this.
You can.
I might as well give it a shot. And I went heads in. I was scared to death, Lo. And that's what I'm excited about talking about this today.
That was the thing, right? Like, I was very worried to go and see an appointment. I was very worried to talk to these sellers, but I was more worried about staying at a bag boy job the rest of my life. Like, that was so much more fearful to me. I was more scared of living that life. Like, you look at a lot of things, right? I didn't want to work 60, 70 hours a week. I didn't want to, right? And, looking at it now, right? Working 10 hours a week, right? It's what I did was worth it. But I had to go from working 40 hours a week to working probably 90 to 100 hours a week, living with my parents at 17, 18 years old, to eventually get to the point where I make enough money where I just work 10 hours a week, do whatever I want, and travel wherever I want, right? And I'm not saying that to brag or anything, but I'm just saying that, like, that fear, my fear is gone of wholesaling because I've done it so many times, right? I mean, after 1,000 deals, there's really nothing I haven't seen. And knowing that, I would not trade any of that fear I had ever, right? And you sort of look at it like, I talk to a lot of people out here, right? And they come up to me and they're like, Zach, I'm so scared to get into wholesaling real estate, right? And I remember specifically one guy, he had a wedding ring on, right? And I said, hey, you have a wedding ring. Are you married? He said, yeah, I love my wife. And I'm like, okay. Were you scared to go on that first date with your wife? He said, oh, I was beyond scared. It's like, well, would you, knowing the fear you had to go through, why did you go over that fear of going on that first date? Well, because that led to a relationship and a wife and kids and the greatest thing ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so you think the fear was worth it to do that? Of course. It was scared. It's never pleasant. I never liked it, but going over that led to something amazing, right? And I'm like, well, if you and your wife go out and get pizza tomorrow, are you going to be scared to do that? No, it'd be fun. I'm like excited for it. Same thing about wholesaling. You got to date wholesaling, right? You got to go on that first date, get that first deal. Second date, third date. Who cares if you mess up? You keep going on it. You'll be excited to do the next adventure, right? Guys, not a lot of people know this, but I think a lot of people do. When I do a live cold calling on this channel and I do it in front of thousands of people and try to close sellers and give lowball offers, I'm excited. It's fun to me. It's sort of a game, right? Like, I know that maybe the seller's going to say no. Maybe they call me a poopy head. I don't care. I'm in the thrill of the chase, right? And you look at it like a lot of things. And I look at it as a video game. I look at it as a game, like, because you can, wholesaling to me is a video game because I keep pushing. I keep pushing the amount of money I make every single year. And it's kind of like, what level can I get to, right? And it's just fun to me, but it's like a video game. It's like if somebody goes up to me, my friends, and like, hey, do pick up basketball tonight? I'm getting excited to do it. I play pickup basketball enough and I have a really good time doing it. Same thing with wholesaling. You might be nervous about it, but it works out.
Yeah, it's guys, I'm here to tell you that, like, if you feel scared, nervous, anxious, that's part of change, of being uncomfortable. And it should tell you, for the most of you guys recognize fear and stuff as like, okay, that's a hot plate, I'm going to burn myself, or it's freezing cold outside. And the problem is now you're looking at fear internally. From the only reason you're fearful is because it's just different and it's not known to you. And that's the challenge. You got to understand, I did this. I'm not going to say completely unknown, but nobody really navigated me through it. So I actually had to take action in spite of my fear and just walk through it. Because, like, I'll give you an analogy. I hate the dentist. I hate the dentist with a passion. I had a lot of childhood trauma with it. My teeth have always been a pain in my butt, but I let past experience dictate my future fear of the dentist. And I find, I had to get some dental work, and I finally just sat in the chair and I go, I'm just going to let go and let it happen. And I found the anxiety going to the dentist is actually worse than the appointment. So I just get through it, and, I work through it. I do kind of like a meditation to work through it. So whatever you have to do to help your ritual get through it, but understanding by going through that fear is what's going to make you accomplished, successful, and feel like you actually did something. That fear is trying to stop you from doing change. And if you recognize it and go, I have to go through this fear to get what I want, it's just on the other side. Look at it as like an adventure, kind of like a treasure hunt, anything like that. I don't look at the dentist like a treasure hunt. I just want to get in and out and not get my complete wallet cleaned out.
You are, right? You're an anti-dentist.
Dentist. I tell you, man, I guarantee I am not the only one with like a dentist issue, man. I get the dentist. I'm just like, my favorite part is when they go, does that hurt? I go,
I brushed my teeth twice today, so I don't fear it.
Yeah, just brush the ones you want to keep. That's what a good dentist told me a long time ago.
Honestly, the fear of failing has to be greater than the fear of actually doing the thing, right? And once that gets over there, it's going to be great, right? Like, so I use the date example. The fear of being single the rest of your life has to be greater than the fear of going on that date, right? The fear of going out here and someone saying something mean to you versus the fear of staying where you're at right now. A lot of people have different fears, but once you put fears into perspective, a lot of things start changing, right? A lot of people have a fear of jumping out of an airplane. If you have a parachute, it won't be as scary. But the fear of jumping off an airplane without a parachute, it's immense, right? And the fear of that versus the fear of cold calling is so much different, right? Like, hey, I have a very natural fear of poisonous snakes. And it's not because it's just an irrational fear, but if I see a snake that could probably end me in 5 seconds with one bite, I have a very natural fear of it. If you equate that to the fear of someone saying something mean to you in wholesaling, it's completely different, right? And I mean, rattlesnakes, I'm okay with a rattlesnake, but like, I'm talking about like natural fears, right? And I don't fear many things. Poisonous snakes are one, and bull sharks. That's pretty much it. Bull sharks are bad. They're bad news. They'll attack people. But really, outside of that, there's not many things that can fear me, right? And we're going to break down some of those common other fears you're going to have. But one thing I want you to think in your mind, and this is one trick to become less fearful to get into wholesaling. And I don't want you guys to use this trick, but it is a trick. Maybe you should not wholesale right now, and maybe you should struggle more. What I mean by this is, I want you guys to start wholesaling now. That's personally what I want everyone to do watching this video. I want you to start getting the traction on here. Maybe you just have to be more broke. Maybe you have to be living with your parents in a basement at 54 years old and literally have no money and no prospects at all before your actual fear of wholesaling is diminished compared to your fear of staying where you're at the rest of your life, right? Maybe that fear has to be so great. Maybe you have to have more struggle in your life before you actually say, you know what, I'm going to make that change. Maybe that's the case. I don't want it to be the case, but for some of you out here, I would rather you start wholesaling now and overcome the fear versus staying where you're at and struggling more. Because that pain and trauma of struggling, you have to just say, I'm sick of it. I'm going to make that change and get into wholesaling. The problem is some of you guys actually have to struggle more before you're actually like, okay, you know what? I should just change this up, right? And it's kind of like touching a hot stove, right? Maybe it's a little lukewarm and you know it's going to get hotter.
Yeah.
And you're just saying, no, I'm going to stick it here. I'm going to stick it here. Maybe you got to start boiling that water before you're like, okay, I got to get my hand off of here. Maybe you guys have to have your hand burned before you actually start getting the holes. I'd rather you start doing it when it's lukewarm before you get burned. But hey, maybe you have to deal with that. I don't want you guys to, but that's a very easy way to get over the fear. Maybe you just want to procrastinate and struggle more, and then you finally get into wholesaling, right? I hate to say it. So we do these one-on-ones, and so many wholesalers, they start wholesaling month 1. They go to the point till month 6, right? Where they are DMing me for $1,000 a month for money. And I'm like, why are you DMing me for $1,000 a month? And they say, I haven't gotten a deal in 6 months. I said, you never hopped on a one-on-one call. They're like, well, now I need the money. And now I'll hop on a one-on-one with you now after 6 months of struggling in wholesaling. It's like, why don't you talk to me one-on-one now? My second favorite is when people hop on the one-on-ones and they say, Zach, I have a seller and they backed out of the contract and I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, why didn't you hop on to me when they first said that? Because they do it 2 weeks after they say it, right? Yeah. Like, come on, right? And so it drives me crazy, but I think so many wholesalers out here have this big fear, right? And I think you get over that fear by maybe struggling more, right? I struggled enough where I didn't want to deal with it. And I knew what would happen if I kept struggling, but sometimes you guys have to get through it, right?
So my struggle, to be honest with you, it's when sometimes at your most pivotal points in life, when you're tired, broke, or you're beyond overwhelmed and confused, you allow your body has this way of allowing you to make a decision. And some of the most pivotal companies, the most pivotal like decisions people made is what we call at like a rock bottom. Now, I'm not saying you have to hit rock bottom, but so let me give you my example. I put in 11 years with the company. I did everything they ever asked, 80 hours a week minimum. And that's not an exaggeration, 6 days a week. They were talking about moving me all over the country. I had young kids at the time. And I'm sitting down with my wife, trying to figure out which bill we're going to pay this month. And I just said, you know what? They haven't fulfilled my expectations for them. And the handwriting's on the wall. You know why? Because 5 of my bosses got fired before me. And I was just going to be another stat looking for another job. And when you get that frustrated from that, your frustration becomes your greatest achievement. So a lot of people think you really make key decisions when you're at the top. Actually, when you make the worst decisions, when you're struggling, you get down to the core of yourself. I just wanted freedom and I wanted an abundance of money. And wholesaling, I found, was going to accomplish that. But if I did not go through my struggle, unfortunately, I went through it over 12 years total. It just built up, and it built up to the point I go, you know what? It can't get any worse than what I have now. I might as well give it a shot. And that's how I did it. But remember, the reason I'm sitting in front of you, the reason he's here is I made a decision at what I thought was the lowest point. I just didn't. If your company doesn't meet your expectation, which a lot of you can agree with, you have to make a decision. I gave it too long. I should have been gone after 3 or 4 years. I waited. And that's why I'm here talking to you today. So my decision to get me out of where I was made when I felt I was at my lowest point working for a company. And I just gave up. I was never going to get where I got. And so I said, I remember telling my wife, I go, what do we have to lose? She's like, the house, the car, the kids, everything else. I'm just like, listen, I just don't think it can get any worse than this. I was basically owned by a corporation. And I can't believe now I gave all that time and energy to it, but that was my learning curve. So if you guys can relate with that, I'm just trying to explain. He did a little bit younger in his life. He's talking about like a bag boy, and he figured out quickly on an hourly rate, I'm never going to get ahead to do this. So you don't have to wait till you hit rock bottom. You just got to make a decision. Most great decisions are made out of pure frustration. Like, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to make a change. So you don't have to wait to get to that point, but you're going to have to go through your fear factor when addressing wholesaling.
I agree. And I think so many wholesalers just watching this, they deal with a lot of struggle, but you got to just conquer the fear, right? And what I can tell you is, I didn't write this down, but like you say this all the time, but you can always go back, right? Like if you fail at wholesaling, you can always just go back to that. Like you can always do it.
You
like,
can always go back to your old life. I promise you, it's waiting for you. It wants you so bad. And you're going to have to avoid all the temptations to become a wholesaler, to get you financially free, to get control of your time with your family. And that fear is a constant, it's just your subconscious trying to do what? Pull you back into familiarity, because your body is running your life and your mind's not running it. And you're going to have to reverse that order, and fear takes over. Now, we talk about physical pain of fear. I'm not telling you to abandon that, but like mental status, it's hard. Guys, I worked for the same company 11 years. I literally felt like I was on an island when I did this. I'm like, and the minute I had a bad month, I'm like, maybe I should, let me see if they still kept my job, and I kept going and running that through my head. I said, no, I want to change. I want to change. So the number one fear people have to get over there is their addiction to their paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah. And people,
that's like you have to have it. And when you get rid of that, it's kind of weird. And it does take some time to get through it. So just relating my story.
Yeah. And people think wholesaling is like all or nothing, right? If I don't get into wholesaling, I'm be homeless, right? Like, it's not like that. Okay. You can always get a job, and even the skills you learn in wholesaling will translate to any sales job or really any job you have in general from most sectors in the economy, right? So it's like, it's not too bad, right? And I just want people to understand that, right? And a very common fear I see with a lot of people, and this is true, but it's a fear of someone is going to arrest you or sue you or scream at you in wholesaling. So let's break down these things. So let's talk the scariest thing to happen. Somebody arrests you for wholesaling, right? Wholesaling real estate is either done with a lawyer, so an attorney state, or it is done by a title company, which 90% of the time has a lawyer there to underwrite, check things, and do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the title company that we use, they were actually owned by a lawyer. So a lawyer is actually going through making sure the title company was as legit as possible, right? And the owner of the title company, love him, he was a lawyer. And we've met with him plenty of times. And this is before I even got into wholesaling. Hey, are you okay if I wholesale? Yeah, wholesaling's legal. He's a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
His legal advice was wholesaling's legal, right? And that being said, it's almost impossible. And this is a quote from me. Take it out of context. Okay. It's almost impossible to get arrested for wholesaling if a title company is there. And there's ways to get arrested by wholesaling, but that's because you just break regular laws. So let me give you an example of how you can get arrested for wholesaling. And let's think of, devil's advocate here. You convince somebody to go sell their property, and you forge their signature. Let's say you forge a contract. That's forgery. We have laws against it. That is 100% illegal. Never do that. But let's say you do it, for example, right? Guess what happens when you forge someone's contract to buy it for, $1,000 and it's worth $1 million? The title company is going to go call that seller up and let them know, hey, closing's on this date. I never signed a contract. Title company says, you never signed a contract. We're not doing title company would stop that. If you do anything illegal in a real estate transaction, the title company is going to see that and not give title insurance to it, right? Because they'll lose a bunch of money. And so if you're using a title company or a lawyer, you're not going to get arrested for wholesaling real estate. And that's the funniest. Everyone's like, wholesaling's illegal in Oklahoma. Title companies read the law, and it is not illegal to wholesale in Oklahoma. And they know the law because they have legitimate lawyers. I don't care that your guru's uncle's sister said it was illegal, who's a realtor. The actual lawyers read the law, and plenty of interpretations came from it that wholesaling is legal in Oklahoma, Nebraska, Arizona, all these places, right? And title companies will still do it with lawyers looking at it. And I just want everybody to watching this to understand this, that wholesaling is legal in all 50 states. Oh, what about this? Wholesaling is legal in all 50 states. And there's ways around all the stuff. And even in Illinois, there's ways around it. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not getting legal advice. Reach out to title companies and they'll help you out with this.
Yeah. But, so you guys, you've spent an entire year of every guru on this face here is trying to scare you. One of the latest trends is you got to join my team or join my my brokerage and we'll protect you. I'm like, I don't understand. So you guys have this has been like a perpetual theme, and it's, in my opinion, it's done by design. Guys, I've been doing this 20 years. I have never, ever in my entire 20 years, and I know a lot of people across the country know of anyone who ever got arrested for wholesaling. It doesn't mean people get arrested for breaking the law. If you deceive people, if you're fraudulent, there's laws that has nothing to do with wholesaling. Those are just bad people. But you just can't get arrested for wholesaling. It's the biggest fear mongering out there. And I just telling you guys, I've seen people question, but usually it comes down to ethics. Did you get a legitimate signature? By using a title company we talk about, that puts a third party to oversee your transactions. And they'll also tell you, hey, I see this coming down the pipeline, and we want you to do things correctly. This is why we only teach wholesaling, guys. There's a million tricks out there.
We teach real estate investing.
Yeah, but do you guys know a lot of the stuff that's being pushed on you? I'm not even going to get into details. A lot of it is borderline like wrong. So when we talk about recording like liens and stuff, you're supposed to incorporate lawyers. Do you know an investor just can't go record a $50,000 or $100,000 lien without having a legitimate service? And if you ever went to court, you're probably going to get killed on that. What wholesaler has a $100,000 fee that you can record a lien on? It makes no sense.
Well, let me give you an example. One thing that we told you, which is in a gray line, that we're not saying you can get arrested, but you potentially could, are novations, right? We don't like novations. And what I could tell you is we have talked to many title companies in Florida and many lawyers in Florida that own title companies, and they say, we know the law and novations are strictly illegal in our view, a lawyer's view. Yeah. Multiple lawyers have said this, and we will not do any novations at the title company. So I'm just letting you know that, like, even if I try to do a novation, which I think still borderline, you could get arrested for it, but maybe not. You got to do it the right way. Title companies in Florida, most of them will not do it because they don't think it's legal. And so a title company would stop you from doing a guru novation because they think it's illegal, and you could potentially get in trouble for it and sued for it. But like, title companies will protect your butt.
Yeah. So the challenge is, for most people trying to make novations like successful, the secret leverage they use over homeowners and trying to sell a disgruntled homeowner that's unrealistic on their price, and you're partnering up with them. If that doesn't scare you in that statement alone, and you still want to go forward, is doing a novation, everything could be questioned, and the homeowner is the one that can come after you for it. So say, okay, I'm going to insure my profit I get paid. I'm going to record a $50,000 lien. Wow. You would stand in front of a judge. How are you going to justify? A lien has to be for services that are actually performed, and you have to be a licensed professional to do that. We are none of that. Like, so a lien is designed for someone who does a roof. Do you notice to do a correct lien and doing like a bill of sale work, you have to have a bill of sale. You have to have a notice of commencement over $2,500 in most state. Oh, you didn't do that. We're going to skip that part. And you're going to be challenged in so many ways. And then when the judge goes, you did a power of attorney. How's your fiduciary responsibility to it? They're never. So just understanding, if a homeowner ever challenges a novation, most of you are going to lose, because don't get me wrong, novations, it makes sense in certain times when it's the right thing to do. But teaching a brand new wholesaler that it's 2.0, like flipping, man, power of attorney, you need an attorney to assist you. Recording a lien, you should have an attorney and a title company assisting it to you. And for that reasons alone, this can get you trouble in wholesaling, because honestly,
and in the law,
you take advantage of the homeowner, because once you did the power of attorney, you had a fiduciary responsibility to it. But that's why I don't teach it, because there's a lot of moving documents. And honestly, if you guys have ever had a disgruntled homeowner, which we see plenty of time in wholesaling, can you imagine if you were their business partner?
Yeah,
and so why would I teach you something that, will it work? Yeah, as long as nobody complains. But I'm telling you, what are the odds of somebody complaining on a novation? They're very high, because the odds of you successfully doing that thing to their expectations. So if the homeowner is expecting to get a $30,000 payday at the end of the closing and it's 20, they're going to come after you. So guys, people don't get arrested wholesaling. They get arrested for breaking the law and trying to do tricks of things that they don't understand. I will tell you, I've been walked down a lot of roads, and I did things and I didn't completely understand it. And whenever I've tried anything like that, it will get you problems. So that's the problem with novations, is you've got a lot of moving parts. And the reality is you're basically controlling a property with no money into it. And guys, if people are complaining about wholesaling, it's 100% legal. Novations is just a trick. So title companies have recognized the novation things because they hear it more and more. Guess what? You are now eventually, they're going to do a workaround, just like we did short sale flips. Bank-owned properties, they usually have a 90-day restriction. On any type of novation, you're going to have to fully establish the lien. And most of the liens are going to have at least 12 months seasoning. So what do you guys do? You record a lien, you try to sell it 60, 90 days later. The title companies are not going to insure or recognize those liens. And you're going to have more and more problems with it. It's only going to get worse. Why? Because people decided this is a cheap way, an easy way to do wholesaling. Guys, if it's quick and easy and it's a shortcut, it's just going to create more problems in the long run. So never do something that you don't fully understand, because that is not a defense when you stand in front of a judge. Just because you don't understand it doesn't make it right. And so if somebody can't explain the basic logistics to you, run. End of story.
I agree. So yeah, you can get arrested for that, but just be very careful with it, right? So that's why we like just talking about wholesaling in general, right? So if you do a subject to wrong, you get arrested. You do a wholesaling wrong, the title company just won't close on the deal, right? So that's the biggest difference between creative financing and wholesaling, in my opinion, is if you do creative financing wrong, you will get arrested. Don't you agree?
There's a lot of moving parts.
If you do it wrong, maybe even sued, but
you're most likely going to get sued. But the only person that's ever really outside the homeowner always has the most control. And if you take care of them and always use them to make sure they're satisfied, you can avoid problems. But it's when a homeowner reaches out to like a state attorney and their target, and this one goes, wow, you did like 40 or 50 of these. Let me reach out to all these people, get a class action suit. Yeah. That's where you can get problems. Like, honestly, you can find a technicality almost on any contract, even your wholesale contract. Some of you guys don't perfect the earnest money and stuff like that. So the biggest thing you can ensure to keep your stuff out of trouble is always take care of the homeowner. And when a homeowner complains and says, hey, I'm not closing, or this isn't what you promised in this agreement and stuff like that, it is your duty, your job, your obligation to make it right. You people that go, well, I'm just going to record an affidavit, you don't understand how this game works, because then you have to go in front of a court of law and a judge is going to tell you what you did wrong or what you did. And guess who gets the benefit of the doubt? The homeowner always gets it. So if you don't understand it, ask questions. Guys, just because sometimes the problem, the whole problem in real estate investing, especially wholesaling in general, is you guys, the marketers, the gurus, have perfected their pitch. They know how to solve every problem from a marketing perspective. The truth, though, is when you ask questions, is this correct? Is it legal? And do I need legal advice to do this? You will never get a correct answer on any of this stuff, because that blows holes into their marketing pitch. So most of our 95% failure, which is admitted by all the gurus in wholesaling, is because you guys buy into their marketing pitch. I'll sit on the beach, I'll flip a property. If you think there's something to replace wholesaling and call it 2.0 and it's like super easy, you're missing some key parts of the details that are going to be hugely problematic. And by the way, they're coming up everywhere now. And I'm just telling you, put in the hard work. If you want to lose weight, you actually have to eat less and you have to become more active. Take a magical pill. It might work for a few months, but you're eventually going to go back to your old self. So make the change. But I will tell you, 20 years, if you do not understand what someone's explaining to you and it has holes, most likely it's going to be problematic. And if you don't fully understand it and your risk and your liability, please don't do it.
I agree. So I think one thing y'all got to understand is we say about creative finance that we still do subject to lease options, owner. We do all that, but we have a lot of lawyers that help us out with it. So I'm just letting everybody know that. Let's talk about the suing part, right? So here's the thing about suing, and I'm not here to scare you or anything, but like, you get sued for anything. For example, if I'm walking down the street and you bump into my shoulder, I could sue you. Like, legitimately, I could sue you. And I could sue you for, let's say, $5 million in damages, right? Guess what? I will not win the lawsuit, but I can still sue you, right? I can sue anybody. A lawyer's going to take my money all day, right? You look at me funny during a live stream, I could sue you. Is that a good look on me? No, right? Should I spend $40,000 trying to sue somebody for bumping into me? I'm going to lose that lawsuit, right? And so anybody could sue you for anything, right? Now, how do you not get sued in wholesaling, right? This is a pretty easy one, but there's only 2 rules to follow for you not to get sued in wholesaling real estate, okay? Number 1, do the right thing. Just think about it. Like, for 99% of people watching this, they know the difference between right or wrong, okay? You don't need to go look at any rules to know what's right. Like, you can look at something like, hey, is that right or wrong? So think about it. Is stealing right or wrong? Stealing's not right, don't go to a grocery store and steal, right? That's not right. Is it wrong to go out here and, not work out or eat unhealthy food? That's probably not the right thing to do, right? A lot of people know what the right thing or wrong thing to do. Is it the right thing to do a rolling stop at a stop sign?
I do.
That's
that.
ethical, moral. That's
I do it all.
If there's no one around you, that's not like a hard line issue, right? Like that's like, So you got to really look at it from that perspective. So how do you get sued? Let's say, for example, you have an elderly person, right? They're 95 years old and they want to sell their house, and you seem like they're not in the right mindset. Most people would be like, that's probably not the right thing to do, to go try to buy their house without talking to their family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people have an ethical compass, right? And so, for example, for us, like, we have sellers that are 94 years old all the time. I had one, this older gentleman, he fought in the Battle of the Bulge in Old Fort Pierce.
I fight that battle every day.
The legitimate Battle of the Bulge,
Okay.
World War II. And he had some very interesting stuff. He's definitely a hero, right? And he came back from the war, and I think in the 40s, he bought a house in Fort Pierce, right? He's lived in it for 70 years. And amazing guy. And him and his wife went to sell their house. They're both in their 90s, late 90s. And I was really like, he was telling me war stories and stuff. It was really impressive. And I was like, okay, I would like to go buy your house and things, but do you have any family members who can go meet me there? And I met with the son. He went to the property too, and he was a 60-year-old lawyer. 60-year-old lawyer. Think about that. His son's 60, all gray hair. I'm like, that's your son. Just kind of funny. And he was actually a lawyer. And he came with, and I explained it, and I made sure he was in the room when I negotiated with him. And it was kind of funny because I kept trying to talk to the son, and he's like, do not talk to me, because the wife was in their 90s, and she was very stern that she makes the decisions around town. And we ended up negotiating, and we didn't get a deal. But the thing is, that's just the stuff you got to do. So like, hey, my son's actually 20 minutes away. Hey, is it okay if he comes also? It's stuff like that to make the family feel like they're included, because I don't want to give a lowball offer to a seller and they don't know what the property is worth. I always tell every seller, hey, your property, you could probably sell it more with a realtor. I always explain everything like that. And that house needed a bunch of work. I mean, no renovations basically since 1974 in the house, mold everywhere. But like, I'm just telling you, do what's right. And in my opinion, the way I look at real estate, I thought it was the right thing to do to have the family included. Mm-hmm. If anybody's over the age of 65, I always try to call a niece, nephew, son, daughter, cousin, uncle, whatever. Just to hey, this is Zach. I'm just letting you know I'm actually talking to your uncle, Jonathan, and I was just letting you know we're looking to buy his property, but he said he lived alone. I just want to make sure the family knows, make sure he knows where he's going, things like that. And he's 65. What are you talking about? Even if they're 65 or older, I just want to make sure, because homeowners that are 65 and older do have more rights, as they're considered elderly, right? And they do have more rights in the law. So you always want to do what's best for them. How do you get sued? You don't do any of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You don't. And number 2, you don't use a title company. Like, legit, if you use a title company, if you ever, God forbid, got sued, you're going to be protected because you use a good title company, right? And title companies have disclosures. So, hey, here's my favorite part. And people have this fear. I've never had this done once. I've never had this once. Let me know if you ever, has anyone ever called you after you've done a deal and said, I'm so mad you bought my house for lowball and you made a profit off of me? Rah, 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 rah. You never get that. You know why? Because they sold the house, right? You only get that when you do creative financing and like other things, right? Oh, I don't like what's going on, novations, right? The thing is, when you use a title company, you sign all these disclosures. Hey, I know that I'm signing my deed over and I'm not going to be the owner, and I'm going to get this much for the house. You sign it like there's like 30 documents to sign. Like, you know that you're selling the house, and the closing agent tells you a billion times. They call you a week before. The day, but you get all these disclosures. So if somebody sues you for putting a contract on the property to buy it, you signed all these disclosures basically saying you agree to it. So what they really could be doing is they should be suing the title company, not you, right? And if you do a lawsuit, I'm telling you, you could probably countersue the person for legal expenses for suing you for selling their house, right? Now, there's other things around that, right? So the only thing you can do, right, is sometimes a buyer can sue a seller. I've seen that on the MLS before, that they didn't disclose it had a problem with it.
You know who they mostly sue?
Who?
Licensed people.
Yeah.
Why? Because they all have insurance policies, and it's really easy to sue a real estate agent. Very hard to sue an individual real estate investor or a wholesaler. I know this personally because when you sit down with people, real estate agents and brokers have what they call an E&O policy, and it stands for errors and omissions. And everyone goes for $50,000 to $100,000 per incident. And it's a pain in the butt. You know that little disclosure like realtors give on the form?
Yeah.
I've had leaks, all stuff. So whenever you buy a house, you never, ever, under any circumstances, fill out a disclosure. Why? Because you don't know anything about the house. And the minute you try to warranty something like that, you're liable. Realtors, on the other hand, they're pretty much forced to do it. And that checklist is what most people will sue on. The truth of suing, and God knows, I've been sued enough. You do this business long enough, anybody can sue you. I can sue you just for you didn't look at me the right way. I don't like how America does that. If I could fix it, it would be like they do in Europe. Because in Europe, if you lose the lawsuit, you get your butt kicked. In the United States, they don't set it up because it's set up for the lawyers, the politicians, everyone to make money. The people that sue you, by the way, it's never the person goes, I'm going to sue you. When people use that as an empty threat, it's a joke. Most lawsuits, when you open your mouth, say you're going to sue it, you got to pull 15 grand out of your pocket. And that's just to get it started. Most people sue you because they're hurt. You did not meet their expectations and you didn't try to rectify it. I have never met someone that either tried to sue me or a business or anybody else that I'm aware of that got sued, that they always try to rectify it with you. Hey, can we sit down and talk? Can we work it out? Most people sue to get your attention and they feel like they've been completely disrespected. So I want you to understand, most lawsuits, when you have a problem, sit down and work it out, because by avoiding it, it will only proliferate and get worse. And so the record I always tell Zach is, somebody threatens to sue you, rarely do they ever do it. It's the quiet one that you really piss off and you think you're getting away with it. Because when you go to a court of law, basically they put their complaint in, you have 20 days to respond. If you've ever been served with a lawsuit and you've never worked a realtor, that 20 days is horrifying, because just to try to get your appointment with the lawyer, it's hard to get that done, because the lawyer goes, listen, I need 10 grand up front to even respond to this. What if you don't have 10 grand? What if you just started out? So if you do the right thing, you protect the seller at best. And then if you get in a dispute with a buyer or something like that, I'm telling you, sit down and work it out. Because if not, the reason they do lawsuits is to force you to sit in front of a common sense judge or jury to say, hey, listen, here's my side, here's his side. This is how I got screwed, and let's fix it.
And remember, people that sue you actually have money. So I'll give you two quick examples.
And by the way, 90% of lawsuits are settled before they ever go to trial. So a lot of lawsuits are either, number one, is somebody's been hurt. It's just the truth, man. People get so hurt and they use the lawsuit and they take it very personally.
But hurt, not hurt.
Or there's the other ones that can be attorney driven. You know, the guys like, once my wife was in a parked car in a parking lot. She got hit by a car, exchanged insurance information. When it was all said and done, she got sued. Why does that happen? That's induced by a personal injury, a lawyer. So you could have a state attorney that the only reason they're going to pursue you is because a homeowner complained about you. When it's lawyer driven, it's horrifying. But when it's personal, most people are just trying to get your attention and go, you didn't respect me, and you are now going to respect me one way or the other. And here's the problem with those. They get very personal, and money's not an object at that point. They'll pay a lawyer 30 grand to expose you and go through depositions.
So what I'm telling you is, those type of people that'll sue you just because they have the money and they want to make a statement.
It's a power move.
It's a power move, but those are very rich people usually.
Yeah. And they know you're probably not going to respond on it. And if you don't, It'll even get worse. They'll put a judgment on you and they're going to go after everything you got.
So now you're scaring people.
I'm not scaring you. I'm just, what I'm
Well,
saying is make it right to people when you have a problem.
But here's the thing, that those type of people are not your motivated sellers.
No.
Okay. Your motivated sellers is not going to drop 50K to sue you to make your life miserable. Okay. That never happens. What usually happens in real estate transactions is a very rich cash buyer. The only threatened could ever sue you. And the thing is, if you go to use a title company that will disclose to the cash buyer that this property is being sold as is and legitimately, you won't get sued. The issue is when that doesn't happen, and it happens usually with a big transaction and a huge issue is not disclosed, and you're trying to pull a fast one. Most people that sell luxury properties, they don't actually go out here and they don't do as-is contracts, right? They use regular realtor contracts.
No.
As-is contracts are the contracts that we use in wholesaling. They disclose everything. This property is being sold as is. You know the clear condition and you are buying it knowing there could be issues with it. Most real estate contracts on the MLS are not done like that, right? And so we have special protection to say, hey, when this is sold, it's not our problem. We know there's issues with the property. The issue is a rich cash buyer could sue you if they don't sign that stuff, which we literally have in our freewholesaling.com. So just letting you know from there. And remember, you're only going to get sued from somebody that actually has money. I remember one issue, you know this issue, a broke guru said they're going to sue me for everything. They're taking everything away from me because I gave out information that they have patented in their course. Here's the thing. They go to the lawyer because they're butthurt. They're butthurt because they're losing sales from me. They go to the lawyer and the lawyer basically says it'll be 20 grand to start the lawsuit and probably another 30 grand to get it going. I can go tit for tat for these guys, right? Like I can go, if you want to put 50, I'll put 50 grand to defend myself, but I will countersue you for probably 100 grand of my time. And once that broke guru said, wait, I have to drop 30 grand to sue Zach and I could get countersued. And wait, you're telling me that information that I have patented was already, wait, Rick already had that type of information 15 years ago when he actually has proof of it?
Nope.
Oh no. Right. And guess what they say? He's like, I don't have 30 grand to sue Zach and I could lose a lot of money because I'm a broke guru.
And they claim to be, multi-millionaires.
Yeah.
And this is the problem across the whole industry. Listen, I don't care how much money someone makes. Honestly, to me, it's kind of a scorecard. It's just play. Like at the end of the day, you can't take it with you. So when people tell you that they're going to sue you, I just kind of like chuckle because you have no idea what it takes. And then my favorite part is, remember when he or she said, oh, it'll take a few months. I'm like, dude, lawsuits go on for years. I've personally been involved one that went on 8 years.
And here's the funniest part. Like, I don't talk about this all the time, but I literally have no fear of lawsuits because I get threatened to be sued by gurus on a monthly basis. And I hate to say that, but it's true. I say something on a video and they say that is actually in my course and you have to delete that video right now. I did a video about wholesaling vacant land and they said that information you gave on wholesaling vacant land is in my course and that's actually my copyright information. I can pop up this book from 1974 that talks about subject twos, how to wholesale land, how to this is a book from the 70s. Anything you tell me, this stuff's already been done. You did not invent it. I got one guy told me, I remember one guy threatened to sue me because I gave a sales secret out. This is a Zig Ziglar book where I learned the secret from. This is a Secrets of Closing the Sale book from, let's see what year. You see the page is yellow. This from the 90s or the 80s? 1984. Yeah, 80s. Like the information I give comes from like other people, obviously, in books and things like that. So I get threatened to sue. And then whenever someone tries to sue me, I can go use proof like that. And then they can't put it up. Guys, I've had gurus' wives DM me saying they're going to sue me. Gurus' wives are my DMs. It's interesting. But can you confirm that?
Yeah. No, when people threaten to sue, I just kind of like, you haven't done much time in a courtroom. So honestly, I'm well versed in it and I understand it because it's there's a lot of people out on the internet like take scam artists and then the scam artists will sue them. And they do it on purpose. Why? Because then they can do discovery and depositions. And then once you do that, then they have to open up all their books in their business. So there's a lot that goes on a lawsuit because everything has to be fair. It has to be public and you have to share the information. So a lot of people get sucked in these traps. I'm like, So if you don't run like a clean cut business and you like sue someone, it's bad. But like for the most part, when people say they sue you, I don't worry about it. It's the ones that are upset and secretly walk away. You better pay attention and just rectify it, because once a lawsuit starts, they're very hard to unwind and it's a pain in the butt. And it's going to cost you money. So getting to the last part, the screamed at, I'm going to guarantee you're going to get that. There's just no way around it. Some people just can't control their emotions. Remember, everybody is going through something in their life. They're just projecting it on you, and don't take it personally. I used to take it personally. You just got to let it go. You know how many times I've been told they're sending the FBI and like the SWAT team because I sent somebody a piece of mail or they got like a cold call? I'm like, okay. Like, I don't sweat it anymore.
Yeah. So guys, you're not going to get sued or arrested every time. What's the DNC list? The DNC list is an illegal gray area, but I'm letting you know that because you are not selling something, you're asking somebody if you're looking to buy their house. Usually, that's in the gray area and you won't be sued. I don't know one person sued for breaking DNC law for wholesaling real estate. I've not found
fined. That's it.
No, not fined. Like, I haven't seen one person fined for that. The people I've seen getting fined is when they actively break FCC laws or FTC laws. And the only person in real estate I know that has gotten a fine is two people. One person for RVMs, which is not cold calling. I've never told anyone to do it, right? And number two, and this is very important, lying to sellers. I've seen the FTC, they sued Open Door, I think, for $60 million for telling people that they will make more money selling with them for cash than with a realtor, which is obviously a lie. If you don't lie to your seller, you're going to be fine. And I always tell every single seller that we'll probably make more money with a realtor than going with me. And because you want to deal with a motivated, stinking seller.
So as in regards to the FTC, you notice they rather take down the biggest player on the block.
Yeah.
So they go Open Door, sometimes they go after Zillow. By the way, the Department of Justice has been constantly attacking NAR for a monopoly. Like, this has been going on like 10 years plus. So the thing is, if FTC ever came down to like the guru, especially the wholesaling space,
they do actually.
Every one of them would be.
The biggest Amazon FBA coach, I think, just got fined $50 million.
Yeah, I saw that.
Nothing against that guy, but I just saw that. Like, they go after they go after coaches for fraudulent stuff. And
so most of the claims that gurus make, remember, they're asking for payment in exchange for what I call a promise. When you guys get like a promise, or you get testimonials that aren't verified, and you got like John T. Come on. So the problem is they don't share their success rate. They only give you like the wild success stories, and you guys are making decisions based on that. And FTC says you got to give full disclosure. Why do you think like those car commercials run? You ever see like that giant? It's like there's got to be 800 words, and you'd have to have like a microscope to read it.
Yeah. So just be careful, guys. So the next part here is how do you overcome this fear, right? And just having that mindset shift, but practice and experience. I'm telling everybody that practice and experience is going to help you get over pretty much all of your fear, right? And what I can tell you is we were all scared starting out, right? So one thing I can tell you is I've done a lot of things that have made me scared or worried to really get into something, right? And what I can tell you is, first of all, cold calling. I was very scared to start cold calling. And eventually I did a lot of cold calls and I'm not scared of it anymore, right? And I kind of look at a lot of things, right? And I think a lot of people have fear that they're going to stink at what they do starting out. I will tell you, my first Call of Duty video game ever was Modern Warfare 1, okay? And not even World at War, Modern Warfare 1. I played online Modern Warfare 1 for 4 hours on Saturdays after school. And I couldn't even get one. Like, I couldn't get any scoring. Like, I was so bad. Eventually, I got really good at it because I put the time in. It's like any video game out here. You just got to put the time in to get better. I was super scared to do my first wrestling match. I think I was 2-20 my first year wrestling, and that was on the JV team. And then going to being like, I think 30-2 my senior year in high school, right? It's like, it just takes time to get better at what you're doing. And you're really going to suck at the beginning, but you can get really good at the end if you just keep it up and you don't stop, right? And it's like anything in life. If you want to get better at something, you just got to keep practicing and having the experience and going at it, right?
Yeah, the key to the wholesaling is you take massive amounts of action and you earn as you learn. And we've all been brought up in a school system where you go 20 years of schooling Then you get thrown in the real world, and then you actually have to learn how to do it. So most wholesaling is just reverse engineer on how the real world works. If you think you're going to sit here 4 years and study material in theory and then go learn it out into the field, you're better off going out in the field and just take a ton of action. You're going to make a ton of mistakes, but honestly, that's the true experience in life. You making mistakes is the experience, and that's what ultimately makes you better. And nobody's going to do wholesaling without going through the journey. I don't care if you pay someone or you do it with me and Zach free. The journey has to be earned, and you earn it through experiences. And some are going to be phenomenal and some are going to be bad. But that's life in general. You can't take it too personal. You got to learn just to detach yourself from the outcome. And that way you can methodically just keep going through it.
And here's the thing. So like, you like the movie Rocky, right?
Yeah, it's all,
I love Rocky, right? How cool would Rocky be if he just won every match and every boxing match and he was just undefeated and he did 2 punches and everyone got knocked out? It'd be a boring story, right? And that's not how boxing works, right? Rocky had to get his butt kicked a couple times and then eventually get better and then beat Dragunov, right? Like, the thing is, it's kind of like Rocky. It's like you look at any superhero movie, right? Like, it's not perfect. Like, there's struggle, there's bad stuff that like there's going to be struggle. Like, it's everything.
And
right?
you know what's even better with the Rocky is the story of Sylvester Stallone trying to get that to a
Yeah,
screenplay.
that's another thing too.
You know, the guy got rejected, not hundreds of times. He said thousands. I think he tried for what, 5 or 10 years to get it. And then he had things he didn't want to negotiate on. And they said he was down to his last time and he's broke and he took one final swing and it changed the whole trajectory of his life. Now, you guys don't have to go that extreme. It's not that hard in wholesaling, but you have to be willing to endure and get through it. So the Rocky story is kind of funny because the story behind it's even better.
Yeah. And I tell everyone that. So,
and did you know Paulie, what was he, the brother-in-law?
Yeah.
He was an actual legitimate real boxer.
Probably. Yeah.
And he had a winning record. He fought in the military and everything else. I'm finding it out. So he could probably beat up Rocky.
Probably. Yeah. Last part here. And I'll challenge people watching this video, right? If you have a fear of wholesaling, fear of cold calling, anything like that, I challenge everybody. I'm giving everybody actually an out to quit wholesaling. Okay. It's the only out I'm going to give you.
A tap out button. You're like,
yeah, I'll let you quit. Okay. If you do this and you say, this is not for me, I won't even be upset. If you can do 1,000 contacts, which is hellos, conversations, and calls of 1,000 sellers of a drawing for dollars or a government list, and you're still scared to death, if you're just as scared as the first time than the 1,000th, then you should quit wholesaling, right? So I always look at this. If you have a fear for flying in an airplane, after 1,000 airplane rides, you're probably not going to be as fearful as when you started, right?
Yeah.
It's like anything. If I had, I have a very, not natural fear, but like, I'm not a big person who wants to go out here and jump off a parachute. A little worrying to me, like, I know the risk is very small, but why I'm going to do that? Why I'm going to add that unnecessary risk? If I do it 1,000 times and I have like 4 backup parachutes, I'm going to be fine.
So you basically saying if they get 1,000 leads, driving for dollars or government lists,
and get 1,000 contacts,
and they're still scared after that, they can tap out. It's kind of like Navy, how Navy SEALs do when you have to tap out. What do you have to do when you leave? You have to make it very public. How do you make it public? What do they do when you quit in Navy SEAL? You have to go and stand in front of all your teammates and ring a bell.
Yeah.
And it's just, they said the bell alone has saved like probably 2% of the people doing it because it's such a mental, like, you are now physically saying, I checked out and I gave up. So maybe I need to get like an electric buzzard or a bell when people want to tap out. I'm like, you want to ring that bell? You got to do it publicly. But they do it. It's psychological warfare. So like doing this, what he's saying, if you do it, just the action alone will probably solve the problem itself. So do it because you've got nothing to lose and you're trying to fix your situation anyways. Just please, guys, don't let fear be the thing that stops you because it's actually the thing that's saying, okay, I'm going in the right direction. Your comfortability has gotten most of us to the point that's what got me there. And I just said, man, I can't take this anymore. I waited too long, guys. So if you have the ability and you're 16, 17, 18, figure it out now because I promise you the school system's not going to guide you.
Yeah. So that's how you overcome your fear, guys.